Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio. I'm Rose Bundock and I'm joined now by Marco Vigni, Head of IoT Sales Engagements for Asia at Ericsson. Marco, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
I think a lot of the talk at this event will be around change and adapting to change. But I understand Ericsson is going through its own period of change in terms of your business focus and strategy. And I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, sure. I mean, we started at the beginning of the year. I mean, it's what we call is a new focus strategy, and it's affecting the entire company. So not only the way we are addressing the industries, we call industry everything that is outside of our core business, which is the telco operators. And very much this focus strategy revolves around taking back our leadership in connectivity in this business. That means also our investments are going to change. So we are going to invest more and more in technology around connectivity. I mean, as you know, 5G, for instance, is one of the next big wave that is going to happen in this industry, but very much is how, let me say, we can exploit the full value of connectivity. And that's why, let me say, everything that relates with connectivity is going to be our interest in terms of also investment into the market. And the way we are going to address the industry is through what we call the Internet of Things. Internet of Things leverage very much on connectivity and leverage also around our some of our traditional assets. That means that, let me say, when we talk about IoT, Internet of Things, we also kind of redefine our approach to Internet of Things. I mean, if you look in the market, we saw two different approaches. One, it was very much on the horizontal. I mean, we see a lot of players provide this kind of horizontal platform to the market. And then there is another approach that we see into the market, which is kind of specialized vertical application for specific industries. The way we see it's that, I mean, in this moment, the problem around the horizontal approach is that tend to fail a bit in kind of providing the right value proposition to the industries. I mean, when you look at, when we've been approached the industry, we understand that they look at the IoT not from a technology perspective. It's not, I mean, IoT is not really a technology problem. It's more very much what you can do with IoT. What is the value of the business model? What is the value? And so, let me say, horizontal approach from one side is the one that is good to reach scale, especially for the one that needs to provide this kind of technology, but it's not really appealing for the industry. On the other way, I mean, when you look at very specialized platform, then you go on the other type of problem. You cannot reach scale. And as Ericsson, I mean, we want to, let me say, leverage more and more synergies across our entire portfolio. That's why when we look with the industry, we have thought more about a different type of concept, which is the use case. Because we have realized that there are kind of use cases that are common across industries. I know if you think about predictive maintenance, if you think about, let me say, fleet management or things like that, there are use cases that are kind of commonality across the industries. There is also another thing that we notice is that the IoT, by definition, is something that tend to create new business model, and that's why you need to go a bit beyond the traditional boundaries of industries. And looking at this kind of use case perspective helps us quite a lot. So we are going to focus on those use cases, so we are going to select few use cases that are relevant for us in terms that where we can spend our capability. And our capabilities could be connectivity, as I said before, but also what we call kind of telco-grade approach. Telco-grade approach is everything around security, quality of service, real-time execution, monetization, where all these factors can play a big role in this use case. We are going to select it. We are going to use these use cases as a kind of Lego bricks to provide our end-to-end offering to the market. So it's a long story, but very much the essence is that our new focus strategy has led us to rethink the way we look at the industries. And so our market is going to be more focused also when we talk about utilities. I mean, in the past we were trying, let me say, to occupy every space around the utility sector in providing everything that was relevant for the industry. Now our approach will be centered around IoT and what is the value that we can bring to utilities when we talk about IoT, which is going also to affect the way our offering is going to be structured. I mean, when I say we are going to fully embrace IoT, it's also about the business model. I mean, you know very much that one of the things around IoT is that all industry are looking for something that is going to scale as the business grows. Because in this moment, Internet of Things is a big hype, but it's not yet mature. I mean, we need to admit that. And so the way we are going to propose IoT is going to be fully as a service. And we are not going, let me say, to move, let me say, outside this kind of pillar of our strategy. That means that we believe that from that perspective also we will look at around utilities. There are a lot of, let me say, key elements that are going to be relevant also for utilities as well, and it's going to be a reposition for us, and it's going also to affect our go-to-market strategy.
Thank you, Marco. You touched on 5G.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of interest in the sector about use cases that will be relevant. Can you, from Ericsson's perspective, share some of those?
Yeah, I mean, when we started to talk about 5G, we receive immediate interest from industry, specifically from utilities. And the reason why is that we all know that in the past, when we were talking about cellular technology, I mean, there has been a gradual improvement on how those technology were able to serve the utilities market, but still there were kind of gray areas where those technology weren't really capable to do so. Something has started to change with LTE because of the lower latency that were going to support, let me say, more demanding use cases, and now more recently with the deployment on narrowband IoT, which is very much something that utilities are finding interesting. Also for them, what we call, let me say, the mass type of machine type communication. So when you look at smart metering, I mean, it's very low bandwidth, latency is not a problem. Narrowband IoT, which belongs to the LTE technology, is going to become more relevant. But then, I mean, if you move to 5G, which is a kind of dramatic, let me say, evolution from the previous technology, is going to bring some features that are going to be really relevant for the most demanding use case, like for instance, ultra low latency. We are talking about latencies that are, let me say, lower than 10 milliseconds. You can go, let me say, lower than 6, 8, 7 milliseconds. The other thing is that 5G is going to be completely redefined around software-defined network and virtualization, which allow one feature that is very much important, which is network slicing. Network slicing is a feature that allows utility to have, let me say, kind of dedicated spectrum to some extent, which affect the quality of service. Because for most demanding use cases, as you know, in utilities, the level of reliability is kind of 99.9 periodic percent, which is something that is not what's kind of typical in traditional cellular networks, because most of the use cases were kind of consumer. Now, 5G is going to allow that. That means that if you go around and look at utilities, I mean, there are some use cases, for instance, microgrid. Microgrid implies that you have a capability to restore quickly in the local, in the edge. 5G is going to allow also microgrid to work with cellular technology, what in the past was not the case. And we know how microgrid is going to become relevant because of distributed energy resources around the world. Other use cases that we see very much interesting and we see a lot of traction, for instance, is around maintenance. Like augmented reality for maintenance. So in critical situation when you need, let me say, to maintain, let me say, critical assets that are also from a safety point of view kind of critical. And so allow, let me say, operator to maneuver, I don't know, robots or drones to do maintenance, let me say, around these assets. These two main areas, I think, will be the ones that will be most interesting for utilities, but they are not the only one. And also during the European Utility Week, we are going to present the results of two major projects that we are doing with utilities around 5G. One is the Success project, the other one is the Reserve project. On the Success project, actually, we are going to demonstrate how 5G can help in managing cyber security and coordinating cyber attacks from a central point of view in a coordinated fashion around Europe, because of the ultra latency, because also it can work on the edge of the network. And this is very much one of the main use cases that we are testing. The other one, which is called Reserve, which is going to define how, I mean, utilities are coping with a 100% renewable scenario. And you know, 100% renewable scenario is a very critical scenario in terms of balancing the grid, because you don't have, let me say, the inertia on the engine of the power plant that are allowed to do the balancing. And that's why you need to develop specific algorithm and coordinate those algorithms across Europe. And that's why how 5G can play a relevant role. So, I mean, For us, 5G is going to be kind of spared for us, but also for all the telecommunication provider to help serve better the utilities. But we don't rule out that maybe utilities may decide to deploy their 5G network. And as a matter of fact, we receive already a kind of interest from some big utilities around, let me say, the 5G concept as such.
Marco, when can we expect to see 5G being rolled out?
I mean, 5G is being kind of tested and piloted as we speak, so it's not far from being widely deployed. As a matter of, I mean, if you look at the projection that we have done, we think that by 2022 there will be at least 500 million subscribers on 5G. That means that you may understand that we think the reality is going to come in the next 2-3 years. So mass rollout, commercial rollout of 5G, I mean, is not far from now.
Great, so new technology, new business strategy,
yeah.
Exciting times ahead. Thank you, Marco. Thank you for joining us. That's all we've got time for in the Engerati studio. You can watch plenty more Engerati videos on our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.